I'm Francisco Rebello. I'm a digital designer and I work on an app used by over 6 million people every day for one of the biggest banks in the country, NatWest, for one of the biggest agency groups in the world, Publicis Sapient. And before this, I'd seen it all. I've been a one-man designer in a small business, worked in big global ad agencies, been an intern, been an apprentice. So I've been in your shoes before. And I've prepared for you the Cisco 3-step guide to standing out without losing your mind. This is a guide I've made from what I've learned in my career so far, and this is advice to my younger self. So if you're in the audience, younger Francisco, listen up. So this is a 3-step guide. There'll be a slide at the end where you can take photos of my summary. But I'll begin. Step 1 is know yourself. When I began as a designer, I'd never heard of Shoreditch, and like everyone, you think you have to do the most to fit in. But actually, what I've learned over my years is to stand out from the crowd, you just have to be yourself. And that begins with knowing yourself. So, I was born in Goa in India, and this meant it's an ex-Portuguese colony, so I grew up with a mix of Indian and Portuguese cultures. To add to the mix, both my parents, one grandparent and a whole bunch of cousins are born in East Africa, so Swahili is a big part of my growing up too. And also I grew up in Wembley. Wembley is one of the most Indian places in London, so all the kids I played football with were from all different 4 corners of the world. And all of this led to what is known as the Cisco style. All the colours, all the patterns. And in my life, I've always experimented with materials, with Photoshop, with artwork for my brother's music, and more recently, hand-painted slogans. When I recently moved from Wembley to the designer land of East London, I filled up my walls with my hand-painted posters. And last year, I took these bits of my bedroom wall and made them into prints and t-shirts, which I sold online under the brand name Tropicool. Tropicool being the name of my dad's first refrigeration and air conditioning company. Oh. So you get it, Tropicool. Yeah. So sweet. And in July, I did my first exhibition in a cafe in East London, and I was so pleased with everyone that came down and bought something. I became a real artist that day. And so I say this, part 1 is, the next part is your portfolio, but find out what makes you unique and express this in your creative life. I know you're unique, but what things are you making that you can show to people? And share this with the world, whether it's an exhibition or just sharing on Instagram. Like, let the things on your bedroom wall and your backgrounds be known to everyone. Step 2 is know when. So we're not artists, we're designers, and let me let you know that 100% of my book time that pays my wages is not spent doing Tropicool. It's actually spent working on the NatWest banking app. And to be honest, I love it. It's not the colourful, illustrative side of Francisco, but it is the me that studied industrial design at uni, reads books about transport for London, and is fascinated with the world that we interact with. And when I first started this project, I was well outside of my comfort zone, and I had to learn all these processes and systematic design. It was very technical, and some designers might say that this is boring and not creative, but let me tell you, one of the most creative parts of my job is the human interactions that I have with the developers and clients that bring out the best solution. And this is way more creative for me than spending all day and all week behind a computer.
Yeah, I got
Sometimes we gotta be like this guy, do our job but bring ourselves to the job. And how I get involved outside of my project but within my company, as you guys can all be doing within your companies, is get involved in an extracurricular project. So this is a project I did for a school workshop. We came up with the name, the design, and we did this for a number of schools. And what it meant was I broke free of all the rules and got literally my handwriting and hand marks as the design with my company's name alongside. And when you get the chance to, go outside the box. Like, just because someone's asked you to do a pancake poster that could take you 20 minutes, doesn't mean you shouldn't take extra time if you want to in your evenings to draw it manually, take a risk to buy some paints. It's these moments that are going to make you stand out from the crowd. And one thing I've learned in recent times, you don't need to design a thing to stand out. You might be on a project or a client where the studio doesn't have visibility of what you're doing, or you're in a non-design job, but use Instagram, use the work emails, and use breakfast presentations to share your inspiration, stuff that other people have designed, but that's your taste and you're bringing your perspective. One of the main tools you need to get a design job is a portfolio. And I balance the two sides of me by having one section all about work, and this is like the case studies from beginning, middle and end. This is the process I talk to designers about. And on the flip side, I keep all my fun illustrative stuff. And this is what helps me stand out from the crowd. So we're designers, not artists. Sometimes our jobs are difficult and process driven. And even if you don't have a design job, the things that you're learning, verbal communication skills, if you're working in retail or whatever job, bring them to the table, find opportunities within your workplace where you can stand out. And most important, have a portfolio. And my personal tip is show both your project work and your fun side of you. Next. Okay, step 3. Respect yourself. This is what no one told me that I needed to do when I became a designer. And you've all heard the phrase, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But Adam JK, New York designer, has added to this, work super fucking hard all the time with no separation or any boundaries, and also take everything extremely personally. So you guys at uni or trying to get your first job know this to be true. I know this to be true. The creative director you're following and every entrepreneur knows this to be true. When I first joined my company, I joined this big building with plush ceilings, huge floors of designers. Everything was very high tech and high paced. And after a good start, I began to struggle and fall out of my projects, and found myself isolated in the corner of the studio with my confidence at rock bottom. And this was one of the hardest times for me as a designer. I questioned whether I was meant to be a designer. I compared myself to all the other designers, and was imprisoned by my own doubt and my own thoughts and self-doubt. Luckily, during this time, I booked myself a trip to Lisbon, and my top tip here isn't to book yourself a holiday, but it does really help to step away. It helped to step away from the building, from designers, from Shoreditch. And when I arrived in Lisbon, I was overwhelmed with the smells, the sights, the sound, the patterns, architecture. It reminded me of why I wanted to be creative in the first place. And I loved Lisbon because it was like perfectly imperfect. No two doors were the same, and I felt at home. Lisbon helped to clear my mind to finish this side project I was working on. I wanted to do a project where I could present back to the designers in the studio my process. So I deliberately kept it not digital and defiantly analog. I made sure to show my notes, the sketchbook scans, my inspiration, my sketches, my experiments with materials, and the end result was a beautiful brand presentation and colourful set of posters that stood out in their sapient corridors. So my tip to you is, if you don't have your dream project, make your own. Find someone that needs a logo, they're now your client, take them through a process, record your process, and bring that to the job interview. And one thing I learned, a practical tip that I learned when I was in Lisbon, was to stay inspired. During my slump, other designers were showing me their flashy digital websites, and it only made me feel worse. When I went to Lisbon, I was reminded that colours, patterns, and real life inspires me, and came back with my old habit that I love is Pinterest. Pinterest being the tool I use to catalogue inspiration I find in real life and online, my own secret stash of patterns and colours. So when someone gives me a project, I go to here first. So, yeah, no one told me about this, but respect yourself. Don't put the design world on a pedestal. It's easy to think these creative directors and big companies are design gods. They're not. They're experts in what they know and their journey. Don't let their criticisms of you seep into your self-esteem. Don't isolate yourself. Meet your friends. Speak to designers inside the company and outside the company. You'll find you're not the only one going through these things. Go to meetups, and when you go to meetups, don't just sit there and watch the talk. Speak to the people next to you. By me being chatty at a meetup is how I got the chance to do this talk. Find a mentor. This was really key. A mentor doesn't need to be someone that the company gives to you. This can be anyone in your family or in your community or in the company or designer, someone who's a bit further in your career. And the key here is to find someone that you can be open about your weaknesses about. When I found my mentor, it was during this mentor speed dating thing, and I asked everyone a question: tell me a time you've been in your struggles. And Sam, who was a great mentor, told me about his struggles as a designer, bad things that had happened outside of life too, which really helped me to get through my year. And create boundaries. Eat well, sleep well, say no, not just to work, but to friends. If you have a disruptive WhatsApp group, trust me, their urgencies aren't your urgencies in this time of crisis. And inspire yourself. Don't be bothered by what all the other designers are following. What sings to you, feed your eyes and souls with that. And yeah, if you've got a camera, this is your time to take a photo of the next slide. This is everything I've spoken about. I've summarized them into some key points. Take a photo and check on your phone on your way home. And these are my books I swear by and Instagrams to follow. These aren't your usual digital design stuff. This is creatives being open about their creative blocks, mental health and even depression, so check them out. Follow me online, check out my portfolio, email me any questions, and before I end, here's a picture of my dad giving baby Francisco a bath in Goa with a goat, and baby Francisco has a message for you all. So, know yourself. This is your journey. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Know when to follow the structure and when to break the rules. And finally, respect yourself. This is not going to be easy, so look after yourself. And to summarize, if you take one thing away from this, is be yourself. That's the only way that you're going to stand out and fit in without losing your mind, because it's difficult out here. Let's fill the world with creative and awesome designers. Thank you very much, Francisco.
Wow.